welcome to another European IP Helpdesk webinar with the Horizon Results platform. I'm going to talk to you just a moment about the platform and then turn it over to Michele Dubini. Next slide, please. So today we are looking at technology transfer. First of all, the Horizon Results platform is a corporate platform with the European Commission, and it's promoting the EC-funded results and innovations. And there are over 3,600 results on the platform, some of which are policy-oriented and many of which are go-to-market oriented. There are different programs involved. So you have Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, FP7, the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, the Research Fund for Coal and Steel, etc. And another big one is the EIT kicks. You have lots of different search filters, so you can find what you're looking for, whether it be by maturity level or geography or industry sector or whatever. We have several very close partners with whom we work, of course, of which the European IP Helpdesk, and then we work with the angels, the BAE and EBAN, that are covering all across Europe and beyond. We work with the EEN, the Enterprise Europe Network, and Solar Impulse Foundation, which is focused on clean tech, the EIT kicks and communities such as the supernovas, and we also work with the EIC, and we have the Booster, which is a free of charge service to help projects move forward in their advancement from dissemination and exploitation, strategy, business planning, business development, going to market, etc. Next slide, Michele. So we've done a lot of activities for the beneficiaries. So there have been a lot of events, pitch events, brokered matchmaking meetings, open innovation challenges, and lots of support, and also a lot of webinars such as today to help the various projects get more investor ready. And then there have been success stories covering projects that have been able to find licensing, obtain more funding and financing, find more grants, get involved in accelerators, etc., etc. More, next slide, Michele. And basically, it's an exciting time because the HRP, as we say for short, is evolving into a larger EU innovation platform. The precise name has not been decided, but what's happening today, we're very much showcasing the solutions. And so it's a supply side. And tomorrow, there will also be the demand side. And so all of the actors, our partners, the investor community, corporates, municipalities, et cetera, will be able to create their own profile. It's a little bit like LinkedIn, and be able to do the automatic matchmaking, because depending on the needs expressed, the system will propose 2 or 3 first looks of something to really help you move on with the needs that you've expressed. Next slide, please. And we also have a lot of videos that are available. On the one hand, you have what the experts say. So a little bit like today, this will be available also on the HRP TV, and you have other things such as, how to work with business angels, how to work with VCs. You have an interesting one from last November, which was with the EIT, and learning all about what they have to offer. And then you also have what have been inspiring success stories of the beneficiaries. So you have the story of Parastruct here on the bottom left. You have on the right, you have Vincenzo Cerullo, who their initial solution was sold, and it was a super exciting happening. And they actually, there was a case study that was created with the IP Helpdesk on this. But there's many more. So have a look and see if there's something in there for you. Next slide, please. And basically, just to say, we have one more in the series, and that is on the 28th of November, Friday, and that's unitary patent. So I think Michele will tell us about the registration, but I think there's just one slide left that will enable you to either have a look at the platform if you haven't already, and at the videos, and then also look at how to publish your results on the platform and have access to all these events and activities. And of course, reach out to us if you have any questions or issues publishing. Thank you, Michele, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you very, very much, Michelle, for this comprehensive introduction of the HRP, which is the part of the European Commission that today allows us to be together. And it's always a pleasure, let's say, to have the chance to share with you this time. Allow me, please, to all participants, to grab a couple of seconds once again from our technical discussion, which is going to be starting in a few minutes, to also introduce the other initiative that allows us today to be together, which is the European IP Helpdesk. And I'm part of it. My name is Michele Dubini, and I'll be your technical assistant today. So in case you have difficulties or questions, you see that there's a black box on the right-hand side of the screen that says questions with a question mark inside. So it's quite hard to miss it. If you have any issue, please type your questions in there. Also, that's going to be important because Christian Sackel presentations are quite interactive, so it's going to be fun for you to provide a couple of answers to what he's going to be asking you. So you can do that again in the questions screen that is in there. Additionally, a question that we always receive is, when are you going to be receiving the slides and the recording of today's webinar? That's going to happen at the latest tomorrow morning, at the earliest this afternoon, of course. As usual, we will do our best in order to provide you with the quickest possible service. Regarding services, you can see the ones of the European IP Helpdesk here on the right-hand side. And everything we do is free of charge, just like the HRP. However, what we do is basically divided here on the right-hand side in 6 different clouds, and these clouds are starting from one single starting point, which is the website. The website is the cornerstone of the services that we offer, and it's ec.europa.eu/ip-helpdesk. And through the website, you can have access to a variety of trainings, like, for example, today, publications, also to our ambassador scheme, events, and also, very importantly, a helpline that is going to answer to your specific questions whenever, of course, you have one relating to intellectual property and intellectual property rights. The territorial coverage of the European IP Helpdesk is the European Union plus the horizon-related countries like let's say, horizon-related countries like the United Kingdom, Switzerland, Norway, and so on. However, there are new ones, like the one I was saying before, South Korea and Canada, that have joined and also are also potentially part of the pool of users that the European IP Helpdesk can serve. However, there are other areas of the world like China, India, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia that are theoretically not covered directly by the European IP Helpdesk, as you can imagine, but the European Commission has dealt with this potential problem by creating the siblings of the Helpdesk, which are embedded in the very same website, which offer the very same services that I've introduced to you before, but with a different geographical area, which is actually already mentioned in their own name. So if you have questions, curiosity, necessities regarding the IP systems outside the European Union and in those areas, you're very welcome to ask to our siblings. Additionally, you can find a lot of information online. Here are a couple of examples, e-learning modules, guides, infographics. There are topic, country, and sector specific. There are case studies also to be downloaded. So there's a lot actually you can do and learn on our website. The newest born are the new fact sheets on design regulation in the European Union, and also a new case study on semiconductors. Upcoming trainings, there's a couple of examples of them. you see some of them are in the past, and that's because I wanted to remark the fact that you can always follow our webinar even if they have already happened, because they're going to be published on our e-learning page. Regarding the upcoming ones, you're very welcome to register, and for the ones you saw before on the 28th of November, we are about to open up registration. So if you check out our website online today, you will not be able to find it yet. However, it's going to be there somewhere between tomorrow, at the latest the day after tomorrow. So you're very welcome to register if you're interested in the topic of the new European patent system. Again, our contacts, our website, and also the emails account in case you want to contact directly our training team, which is basically myself and some other colleagues, or also the helpline sitting in Alicante. And also if you want to get in touch with us through the social medias, there's X, there's LinkedIn, or if you want us to get in touch with you with a bi-weekly reminder of what's happening throughout the European Union in terms of intellectual property and intellectual property right, there's the newsletter to which you can register, and we'll be happy to try and keep you informed. This is basically everything from my side. I'm going to pass the word to my colleague, Christian Hackel. Thank you very much once again, Christian, for joining and being with us today. I'm looking forward to the presentation on technology transfer. I'll stick around here for a couple of seconds to see that everything's working and give you, say, the green light. I can see your slides. I could hear you before, so I think we're all set.
Perfect. Thank you, Michele, for your kind introduction, and I hope you can still hear me now.
Yes.
So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Very glad to be with you today and tell you a little bit about technology transfer. In this session, before we start, very brief introduction on my side. I'm managing director of a company called TUM Tech. TUM stands for Technical University of Munich and Tech for Technology Transfer. However, we are not the internal office, tech transfer office of the university, but we are a separate company. GmbH is the German equivalent of a private limited company. In addition, I'm coordinator of a large hydrogen research project, assistant professor at the chair for technology and innovation management, senior advisor for the EU IP Helpdesk. That's why I'm here with you today. A lecturer for the EPO. I wrote a couple of papers, and at the end, I'll introduce you to a few of the case studies. Okay, let's jump right into the topic. That's the agenda which I'd like to cover together with you today for the next couple of minutes. Let's first start with a very quick debate. Let's say what actually is tech transfer, then what are the different stages of tech transfer, actors and assistants for tech transfer, and to sum it up, as mentioned, I'd like to introduce you to a few case studies. Okay, let's start with what is tech transfer. And as Michele pointed out, I'd like to have these sessions kind of interactive. This means every time you see a question mark, I'd like to invite you to actively participate. In this case, right at the beginning. A question mark means please type your ideas to the question. In this case, what is tech transfer? Type it into the questions box. You can find the question box in your control panel under the chapter of questions. So please go ahead. Any idea for a definition, such a important word, or basically short description? What do you think is tech transfer? So I hope everybody was able or is able to find the questions box. So yes, first answers are coming in. Thank you very much. Let's wait a little bit longer so that everybody can finish the typing. Perfect, thank you. So I'll start reading them for you. So the first answer was basically tech transfer is putting science results into practice. Next one, use of research results in real world applications, a process of conveying academic ideas, concepts to the industry, potential market. Bringing a new technology from the research field to the market or industry, selling, licensing, or creating a spin-off to explore science results in the market, bringing tech innovation to products or service, capacity to make the project results being usable and used by whatever kind of end users from private companies to government, commercialization of technology, licensing, spin-offs. Well, thank you very much for all these kind of descriptions. I have one description here, which states technology transfer is the process of transferring scientific ideas, finding, or technologies from one organization to another for the purpose of further development and commercialization. So I guess everybody agrees on the second part here, for the purpose of further development and commercialization. I actually like this idea because the first part is very broad. Yes, normally we always think that the idea, the new technology is developed at a university, at a public research organization, and then it's sort of being brought into a company. But it does not always have to be this way. It can be, for example, from a company to another company. And that's why I actually like this, if you want to call it definition, because it's very, very broad. It does not limit it to specific partners in this process of tech transfer. In case you're interested, this is the definition of AUTM. It's the Association of University Technology Managers. And as I said, I like it because it's rather broad. But actually, I mean, the basic that why I bring this up here is basically that we have sort of a common knowledge what actually tech transfer is about. Okay, if we have a look into this, what's called the innovation funnel. This means we start out here at the left-hand side with many ideas. Basically, each of these bubbles here, the blue bubbles, represents one idea. And you bring the ideas into different phases down in the market. So from the ideas, we have the development phase, which means you select the most promising ideas, bring them in the next phase. Then, again, you select the most promising ideas from the development phase, and you, for example, build a prototype and really test them. And so you lower the numbers of ideas, or in this case, bubbles, until you finally bring one or few products or services on the market for commercialization. The important thing is here, you have basically this inside the company and this outside the company. And these two are separated by thick, heavy walls along this funnel. That's what we call closed innovation. And as you probably have guessed, if there is something like closed innovation, there is the opposite, which is like open innovation. So it's basically the same setup. However, these walls separating inside and outside the company, now they really open up, which means you basically have an idea which has been created outside the company, and you bring it into your company. And from them on, you just treat this idea just as any idea which has created inside your company. You bring them through the different phases, development phase, testing phase, launch, and hopefully on the market. And as you basically see, you can have an idea brought into the company at a rather early stage, or at a later stage doesn't make any difference. And basically you have the opposite. If this is basically an inbound, you bring it from the outside into your company, you have the opposite, which is outbound. You have an idea which has been created inside your company. And again, let's say you created the idea, you developed it a little bit further, but then for whatever reason, you decide not to pursue this idea, this new technology any further. So what are your options? You can either just forget about it or let it sit on the shelf, or you make it available for any institution outside your company for further development. This is basically the outbound aspect of this open innovation. And then just to complete the picture, on the right-hand side, we have this commercialization. Obviously, commercialization can be done by you. If you have been responsible for the left side of the equation, meaning for all this innovation effort, you can do the exploitation on your own, but the exploitation can also be done by others. And that's this what we call external commercialization or licensing, for example. So basically here, open innovation, we have two sides of the equation, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side here, we have these two direction, inbound and outbound. So that's what we call open innovation. And that's basically the basis for all tech transfer activities. So if we say in tech transfer, we have basically two partners. One partner is a technology provider, basically supplying a technology, and the other partner is the recipient of a new technology. The other partner is basically on the demand side. And the process of technology transfer is now basically bringing these two partners together. And now, depending on where you start, you have different types of tech transfer. So the first one is basically you start with the supply side, and you offer a potential recipient of a technology what you have to in offer, and that's what we call supply-oriented tech transfer. And the other option, obviously, is when you start with a specific demand and you're looking for a partner which can supply this specific technology. You start from the right-hand side, you start with the demand, and that's what we call demand-oriented tech transfer. So we have different types of partnership. One sort of almost classical type of partnership, the provider is the university and the recipient is a company. But as mentioned before, you can have two companies on the two sides. So one company is provider and one company is recipient. And you can actually have different combination as well. Also, they are really less likely and less common than the first two. Okay, so I hope we all have now a basic understanding of what tech transfer is about in the context of open innovation. Now, let's have a look at a few examples of tech transfer. First example, perceptual audio coding technology, technology developed by Fraunhofer Institute for Integrated Circuits. Maybe you don't know what a perceptual audio coding technology is about, but I'm sure you all heard about the famous MP3 format. MP3 format, this is, well, you could say, famous success story for this Fraunhofer Institute. They developed the technology, licensed it out, made really, really big licensing income based on this new technology. However, you could also say this as an example of how bad some countries, in this case Germany, are in commercializing the technology. This technology was developed, as I said, by a Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. However, commercialization of this technology was all done, for example, by Asian companies. There was really no German company really active in the commercialization of this new technology. Second example, a formula of carbohydrates and electrolytes to stimulate fluid absorption, developed by the University of Florida. Again, you might have no clue about formula of carbohydrates and so on. However, you might have heard about Gatorade. Gatorade, as mentioned, developed by the University of Florida specifically for their own football team, the Florida Gators. And then it was such a big success that eventually they thought about offering this specific drink for other customers, for other users, and basically opening up and really bringing a new product really on the market and not just developing it for internal purposes. And the last example here is a method for rating web pages objectively and mechanically effectively measuring the human interest and attention devoted to them by the Stanford University. Again, you might have no clue what the method for rating web pages objectively and so on. However, I'm sure you all know about Google. Again, a very, very interesting story. Two students came up with this method. The Stanford University, the tech transfer of Stanford University, back then, they had tried to offer a license on this technology to the search engines back then, Lycos, Yahoo. None of them was interested in this new technology. So the two students decided to form their own startup. Stanford University supported them. And well, I guess you all know the rest of the story, how successful they are. So here a few examples for tech transfer, really products almost everybody knows on the market, but it's always interesting to see how they actually have been generated. So now, since we talked about what is tech transfer, we had a look at a few examples for tech transfer. Why actually do you think is it beneficial to team up with a partner in the area of tech transfer? And here we go again, question mark, which means the floor is yours. Why do you think could it be beneficial to team up with a partner in the area of tech transfer? Again, I invite you to type your ideas, your suggestions into the questions box. Any ideas from your side? What's a good reason to team up with a partner in the area of tech transfer? Okay, thank you. The first answers are coming in. Again, let's wait a little bit longer so everybody has the chance to finish typing. Perfect. So let's start again. In case you're typing, just finish your typing. But again, I'll read out the answers. So the first one was, it might be beneficial because who develops the technology might not be the right person to commercialize it for the lack of resources or skills to do that. Second one was benefit from the partner skill, extended IP protection, share some risks. Get rid of developing the commercialization cost and the market conquest. Each one has a specific role in this process to close the gaps of missing competencies, know-how, network access to budget, to divide the risk. And finally, further development of technology revenue for university. Yes, thank you for your answers. Let's see whether I can add a few one. So here is a list, not exhaustive, just a few of the benefits. Access the technology and know-how if you're looking for a new technology. Share the risk and cost, speed up product development, and by doing so, reduce time to market. So basically, instead of starting your own R&D process, just have a look out there. Is there already the technology you're looking for out there somewhere in the market? So you can access this technology. By doing so, you don't have the risk of starting your own R&D project because, as everybody knows, an R&D project can fail. It might be much faster if you can access a already developed technology from the market versus developing on your own. By doing so, you can generate profits because, as you've seen in the funnel before, in the example of the open innovation, if you give an idea which has been created into your company out to a third-party institution, obviously you don't have to do it for free. You can charge for it, and that's why you can generate profits. You can access new markets and you can commercialize ideas. So maybe you've noticed basically two different aspects. The first one is basically you bring a technology into your company, into your organization, which means you have a specific demand and you bring it into your organization. This would be sort of the inbound tech transfer or demand-oriented tech transfer. And here in this second part, which means you already have a new technology, you basically have a supply and you're offering to the outside market. And by offering so, if you're successful, you generate profit, access new markets, and commercialize idea, basically for the commercialization of the technology which you have developed. As I said, not an exhaustive list, but just some benefits for tech transfer. Well, if we talk about advantages of tech transfer, we should not neglect that there might be some barriers to tech transfer. And again, what kind of barriers could you see for tech transfer? What could be, according to your point of view, potential problems for tech transfer? Any idea from your side? Well, you could put yourself into the shoes of, for example, a company looking for a specific technology to bring it into your company, sort of inbound tech transfer. What problems do you might encounter? Or the other way around, if you have a new technology to offer to a third party, what do you think might be potential problems for engaging in this kind of tech transfer? Yes, again, thanks for all your suggestions, for your input. So the first one was there might be different timelines between the partners, different language, different confidence. Another potential problems might be jurisdiction issues, bargain, power differences, reliability of negotiation parts. Patent protection, if the technology isn't properly patented, it can be copied or misused. That's actually a very important point, because sometimes people think if you have tech transfer or open innovation, it does not work with a patent protection, for example, with intellectual property rights. However, it's actually just the other way around. Tech transfer really does not work if you do not have a proper intellectual property rights, if you do not have a patent protection. Because what does it mean if you're on the supply side? You're offering a new technology to a third party. And if you don't have, for example, a patent protection, the other party could say, oh, thank you. I'm very happy to take up this technology, develop it further, or use it for my own purposes, and just saying thanks, and that's it. So only if you have a proper, for example, patent protection, you can exchange, or you can start this negotiation saying, okay, I'm willing to offer you this new technology in returns, for example, for licensing payments. So that's a proper protection of intellectual property is really the basis for all these kind of activities. Let's keep going. Other problems might be there's no market. The TRL is too low. TRL stands for technology readiness level, starting with very low number, like 1 is just the idea, and then basically the higher the number goes, the more developed the technology is. It might be a problem finding a suitable industrial partner. Another problems might be lacking freedom to operate, lack of absorption capacity, state aid rules. Very briefly, freedom to operate. If you're not familiar with this term, it's basically if you start a new R&D project, for example, and basically saying, okay, I know I would like to develop this kind of technology. You should check whether you have this called freedom to operate, meaning, yes, if your R&D project is successful and here you have this new technology, are there any third parties IP right which could block your commercialization activities? Because, for example, another third party might have already a patent on this kind of technologies. So this freedom to operate, or FTO, it's called, it's a very, very important concept and very important activities you should not forget. And if you're interested in this technology, we have a dedicated webinar, I guess, next Wednesday. So not this week, but the following week, if I remember it correctly. Okay, so thanks again for your suggestions. And here, I again listed a few potential problems. If you're on the demand side, you might have a problem finding the information on, well, what kind of technology is out there which would help you with your specific demand. Same, it's on, the first one is on technology. The second one is on which are potential partners out there who have this specific technology, or you have this specific demand from whatever side you're starting your tech transfer activities. Next one, missing infrastructure or missing skills to adapt the technology. Because if you find a new technology, most of the times you have to adapt it to your specific, for example, technical production equipment. Missing funds, missing common interest, and as some of you said, missing communication and trust, because trust is an important part in these tech transfer activities. Yes, I guess we have some universities here as well. Why do universities engage in tech transfer? However, looking at the time, I'd just like to keep going. Universities, based on their definition, they can only cover the first part, their research, but not the later stages, commercialization. That's why it's important for them to team up with another partner companies, for example, for the commercialization. By doing so, universities can create licensing revenue. It might just be the law that they should do it. And it helps for the reputation of the university. It's very beneficial for them It helps to attract researchers, to attract talents, and obviously also money, additional funding, and it helps the economic development of the region where the university is located. That's why it's very beneficial for universities to engage in these activities. Very briefly, two concepts, technology push and market pull, to make sure you've heard this. The sequence of activities, you start with R&D, and then you go into the manufacturing, marketing and sales, and finally you go to market. And in the technology push, your starting point is the R&D. You develop a new technology and you basically produce it and then bring it on the market. If we talk about market pull, we have the same sequence of activities. However, the starting point is the individual market need. So basically, there is a market need for, mobile phones, smaller, more lightweight, more functionality. And based on these market needs, which you have identified, you go into R&D activities. So that's the two different concepts, technology push and market pull. Okay, moving on to the second part, stages of tech transfer, search for technology. As I mentioned, information is key, and obviously the other way around, lack of information is a challenge. We talked about it might be challenging to find out about potentially relevant technology or know-how for you, and who is the owner of this potentially relevant technology. And basically, again, we talked about these two directions, supply-oriented and demand-oriented, and information is really important for both directions. If you work supply-oriented, you have to find out who might be interested in this new technology you developed. And if you start from your specific demand, your challenge is to find out who is offering this specific technology. But support is coming in two forms. We have specific tools and actors. And I'd like to introduce a few examples on these tools and actors. So here, as one of these specific tools, I'd like to inform you or tell you patent information. It's really very, very helpful tool for this. You might think, why is patent information helpful in this? Well, because patent documents are a description of new technologies. Normally, you look at specific patents and really try to understand the very, very details of the claims. In this case, we are looking at a little bit higher level, but still patent documents are very important. Not only based on the technology, that's why everybody's using the patent documents here, but also for identifying potential partners. What does it mean? If you look for specific technologies in patent documents, you find a specific technology. In the patent document, it says who developed this specific technologies, for example, the specific university. So this specific university might be a very beneficial partner for you. Okay, there are these databases of the national and international patent offices. I would say almost all these patent offices have their own database. This is just as an example, ESPASnet, what's called. That's the database of the European Patent Office here. And you find it under this website. Well, you have different options to use it. The first one is basically very easy. You just type your search term here, and the algorithm is smart enough to understand what you're looking for. Is it a specific technology? What's the description of the technology? And so on. If you're really a pro, you can sort of use this, I would say, older version of how to use this platform. And basically, if you're interested in using this, you find it here under Classic ESPASnet. However, I would recommend you the first option or this option here. How does it work? So for example, you type in here a search term and you say, okay, please look up this search term in the title section. And you can combine it with a second search term and you say, okay, please look it up in the title or abstracts. And then you can combine the results of the first text box with the second one using the Boolean operator AND. So this gives you the result of this first text box. And then, for example, if you have a number of a patent, but you're not sure, is it a publication number, an application number, a priority number, you basically type the same number in all three boxes and basically use the Boolean operator OR. It gives you the result of the second text box. And then you can combine the result of the first text box with the second search box using the Boolean operator AND. And by doing so, you can really come up with quite complex search syntax. If you like this option, you basically find it here under the advanced search. And one last feature I really like, we talked about here, title or abstracts, sometimes you're looking for specific technologies. For example, if you're looking for a technology involving the door of a car. Well, you have different options for looking up the relevant patent documents. If you search for the term car door, obviously you might retrieve high number of documents, but if you're looking for a specific term car door, you might miss the patent documents which they don't describe it as car door, but for example as door of a car, which is the same meaning but different search terms. So to help in this case, you have the option again, you have a search term here, the first one, for example, door, and the second one would be car, and you look it up in the description, but then you say, okay, you want to have the first and the second search term in the proximity of less than 3 words away from the second box. And by doing so, you would, in this case, find examples of, for example, terms like car door and door of a car and so on. So you can be quite specific on this one and play around with it. So that's why I really like this patent database because it really helps you to develop your own search syntax, which was quite complicated to develop in the previous time. Okay. Just an example of these so-called citations. If you have a specific patent document, for example, in here in the middle, you have other patent documents which have been cited in this specific documents here. So this means the patent documents on the left-hand side are older because all these patent documents on the left-hand side have been cited in this patent document in the middle. That's what's called backward citations. And now moving on to the right-hand side, all these different patent documents, they cite this patent document here in the middle. So this means they are the younger patent documents, and that's what we call forward citations here. Again, this helps you to really find out who is active in what field. And here in this case, it's shown the companies or institutions who own the specific patents here. And by doing so, you get a very good feeling or overview of potential partners in this case. One more example here, why I think patent documents are such a great source of information here, what's called patent mapping. Here it's basically a patent mapping of a specific search area, in this case of compressors. And basically each of these cells here represent a single patent document and they're grouped. So for example, you have the group of air compressors here this big bubble. You have rotary compressors. Here you have scroll compressors, so different compressor type, centrifugal compressors. Then patents on different parts of the compressors, like the valve or the oil. And what's make it very, very interesting, the coloring. The color coding, you can set your own, but for example, you can say, okay, I want the color coding by the companies or owner of the patents. So basically here, the blue color is company number 1, the yellow color is company number 2. And by doing so, you immediately said, for example, the company 1, the blue color, is very, very active on the compression elements and also, for example, on suction mufflers, whereas it's less active, for example, in the scroll compressors. So by doing so, as you probably can imagine, you're really moving into the, for example, competitor watch, really seeing which of these companies who might be your direct competitors is moving in what directions. So again, my message always is patent documents are really such a great source of business information, not just the individual patent, but really in this case, the patent mapping. Okay, moving on, screening of a technology. Well, let's assume now you find an interesting technology, you on the demand side. Again, looking at the time, I would recommend you have two main criteria for evaluation. And I recommend the first one is legal, the second one is the market. Why is it so, or what do I mean by this? Well, if you on the demand side here, from the legal side, I would recommend you to do your homework and search for the legal question, is there a valid IP protection? Because if you're looking for a specific technology and then find the specific technology, maybe pay for using the technology and then finding out that there is no IP protection, you really have to think about, is it worth all the effort, or it's free to use for you? Certainly not to pay a lot of money for such a technology. And the second criteria, the market, is basically you have to answer the question, this new technology you're looking for, you're interested in, is this technology, is it really meeting your business needs? And is there a good IP protection? Obviously, good is fitting your business needs. For example, if you're interested in doing business, I don't know, in France and Italy, it's important for you that there is IP protection for this new technology in France and Italy. And if you're not interested in the US, for example, it might not be so helpful if there is an IP protection in the USA, but not in France and Italy. To complete the picture, if you're on the supply side, you should ask yourself in terms of legal, is it possible to go for patent protection? And in terms of market, does it make sense to go for patent or IP protection? Well, these basically are the main questions you ask yourself on the topic of IP assessment or IP evaluation. And again, we have a dedicated webinar on this topic of IP assessment. Okay, screening of technology, I mentioned these two. First category is legal and market, and I would recommend you to address additional 3 categories. The next one is technology, finance, and the fit to your business strategy. Again, I mentioned the seminar on IP assessment, and we actually have a extended version, a 3-part seminar on IP assessment, which we run together with the EPO, the European Patent Office. It's normally in spring, so it was in May 25, and hopefully we again have it in May 26, and it will be offered or made available for registration both on the EPO website and also on the website of the European IP Helpdesk. Okay, moving on to contractualization. Well, again, if we go through step by step, I would recommend you to have a few of the important documents. Well, obviously, you have the first contact. Let's assume the first contract was very good. Both, excuse me, both sides, both partners say yes. We'd like to keep going in this discussion. I would recommend you to talk about the confidentiality, which allows you to talk more freely about a specific technology. Then you agree on the general outlines of a potential cooperation. Then you start your cooperation, and finally, you transfer your intellectual property rights. Well, what do I mean in terms of contracts? The first one, managing confidentiality. Obviously, you should have a non-disclosure agreement. As I said, it allows you to talk more freely, either on the technology or on your specific, for example, production equipment, to find out what effort do you have to take in order to bring this new technology into your company using your existing production equipment. The second one, agreement on general outlines, memorandum of understanding. This is not mandatory, but I would say, yes, it helps. It basically just says, well, we would like to engage in this activity. That's, for example, the activities of each partners. So you basically lay the groundwork, but I guess, again, you do not have to do it, and it's legally not binding. Totally different, your consortium agreement. I would say you really have to have it in some different forms of cooperation. For example, if there is some funding involved, you again have to have it. Obviously, this is legally binding in contrast to the memorandum of understanding. And finally, let's hope you have a very, very good R&D project, a very, very good cooperation. If you transfer intellectual property rights from one partner to another, you might have these agreements on licensing or transfer of ownership, selling intellectual property rights. And you could also include a material transfer agreement if you work with biological samples, for example. For all these different agreements, there is a individual page on this, for example, here on the non-disclosure agreement with some more details. But I guess we don't have to go through them one by one now, but you'll find them in the documents Michele is sending out to you later on. So I would say, let's just keep going. For the last part, I mentioned the transfer of intellectual property rights. You have different options. The first one here, a transfer of ownership, meaning you sell a different type of intellectual property. For example, a patent, you sell it from one entity to another one, from one partner to another one. It's a one-time transaction. You basically agree on the price, and that's it. Totally different, it's licensing. Licensing means, for example, a patent, you do not sell the patent. The owner of the patent remains the owner, but the owner of the patent allows the other party to use the intellectual property right, to use the technology which is protected by this patent. So this is not a one-time transaction, but it's really an ongoing partnership. Very important, you have to make sure both sides will be happy. Only by doing so, you create a successful partnership. Again, by the way, we have dedicated seminar, actually two-part seminar on the licensing, a basic and an advanced seminar. And then last but not least, a spin-off. It's basically a part of an existing organization form a new entity. The spin-off, it's mostly done in the university setting, less in the business world. Some people say it's a third option. Some people say, well, it's sort of a sub-form of the first transfer of ownership or licensing, because the spin-off needs to have access to intellectual property rights held by the sort of existing organization, by the mother organization. In the case, if you have students, for example, forming a spin-off, they need to have access to the technology held by the university. Okay, As I said, license is very important. That's what we called indirect exploitation of intellectual property, where the owner of the IP stays the owner, remains the owner, but grants the other party, which is called licensee, the right to use the IP. And as I mentioned, dedicated webinar on this. Okay. If we go into a partnership, obviously tech transfer is very important basis for this partnership. And as some of you mentioned before, trust is important, trust and common goals. But sometimes the goals are a little bit different. For example, academic university, the desire is to publish. Now, more and more, they want to be the owner of the intellectual property rights, whereas the industry, they are not so interested in publishing. They want to keep it secret. They want to commercialize it for their own purpose. They would like to be the owner of the IPR, or at least the unique user of the IPR if they are not the owner. So that's why splitting the rights in a partnership, especially with regard to the intellectual property right, is very, very important. And this topic you have to address in the consortium agreement. With regard to the IPR, it's important to define the background. In the IPR, every partner brings into the project. You have to define the rules for access of this different background IPRs. Every partner brings into the project during and also after the project. And different from these background IPR, which existed before you start your project, you will have IPR results created during the course of the project. And then you have to agree on how do you want to handle this new results. Do you want to keep it secret, or do you want to go for patent application? If you want to go for a patent application, for example, who is in charge of it, the application, the extension, renewal of the right, and in case there is income, for example, licensing income, based on this IPR, which part of the revenue goes to which partner. So basically, talk about these topics. It can be challenging, can be time consuming, but it's very important. Some people say, okay, we'll talk about it later once we really have an ongoing partnership, but it's really advisable to talk about it before you start the cooperation, because it's not a waste of time. It makes life much more easier if you define these topics from the early stage on. Okay, quick look at actors and assistants. Remember, we've got this picture, supply on the left-hand side, demand on the right-hand side. And we said sometimes it's just challenging to find the right partner, to find the right technology. The good news is we talked about the support. We talked about tools to support this, the patent documents, patent databases, and actors to support this. It's what I would like to call transfer experts. There are different experts, for example, tech transfer offices. Tech transfer offices is, for example, a tech transfer office of a certain university. We said universities are more on the supply side. So this means tech transfer offices always work supply oriented. So if you a company here on the demand side, if you talk to a tech transfer office of a university, they can show you the supply of their own university, but only of their own university. So a tech transfer offices of the University A will not give you an overview of the supply of the University B. That's you have to keep in mind. There are regional actors like Chamber of Commerce, for example, who can help you in this context to find the right partner. Also, for example, in the business world, but limited to the region if it's a regional Chamber of Commerce. There are dedicated consulting companies which can support you, which can work very specific for your individual needs. However, the activities of these first two are most of the time free of charge. If you work with a dedicated consulting company, they will charge you for their services. And then we have, as number 4, specific programs and service initiatives. And again, an individual page here on all the information, different tech transfer offices and so on. So here on tech transfer office of a university, regional actors I mentioned, for example, Chamber of Commerce, also maybe innovation initiatives in your region, or technology parts or incubators, as I said, mostly with a certain regional focus, consulting companies which can really work very, very individual on your demand, but they send you an invoice for their services. And the last part would be an institution, for example, like the European IP Helpdesk. Okay, so to sum it up, as I said, I'd like to introduce you very briefly to a few case studies. The first one is a company called Phos4X, a startup from the Technical University of Munich. And you can find this paper here from the EPO website here if you search, either use this link, or if you search for EPO and tech transfer case studies, you'll find this link. And the second one is on a company called Orkan Energy. Again, you find it here under the same link. Very briefly, what are they doing? They work with exhaust heat, waste heat, and they generate this into electricity. And they basically started out with small single installation in Germany, Europe. And this is basically their product. And you see here their product next to a biogas plant. You see the little biogas dome back there. You have a CHP inside, and the hot exhaust fumes normally go into the air. And now the new thing is that you run the hot exhaust fumes here into the EPAC and basically generate additional electricity out of these exhaust fumes, which would normally just go into the air. That was the setup, a small single installation next to each source of industrial waste heat. And they managed with a tech transfer activities to move forward from this small single installation to large installation in Asia, based on a licensing deal with a Chinese partner. So that's their much, much bigger product. And this is an aerial view of an electricity plant in Myanmar running on natural gas. And basically here you see the gas turbine, and next to each turbine you have the Orkan product. And here you immediately see from this very small single installation to this huge installation here. So this was a very, very big step for this company. And if you're interested in this licensing story of this company, you find it here on the second case study on the company Orkan, specifically dealing with their licensing activities. And you find this case study on the website of the European IP Helpdesk. Okay. That's basically it. Thank you very much for your time and listening and your active cooperation. I very much enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And now I would like to give the floor back to Michele, and we have time for a little Q&A if you have some questions here regarding this context. Back to you, Michele.
Thanks a lot, Christian, for very interesting presentation. I am going to share the questions part of our webinar now. There are no questions at the moment, but I am going to leave the participants a little time to think. And in the meanwhile, I'd like to mention to those of you who have connected a little later that you're going to be receiving the slides and the recording of today's webinar either this afternoon or at the latest tomorrow morning. You're going to be receiving a follow-up email with the PDF slides that we have just seen, as well as a recording link that will allow you to watch the recording at any time. And also you can share it without any form of limitation. Additionally, at the end of the webinar, there's going to be a feedback form. And if you'd like, we're going to be very happy to know what you think about the webinar that we have just carried out together. Of course, it's going to be important for us and useful to keep on improving potentially what is the offer of our day-to-day and regular activities, and also for the special occasions like the collaboration with the Horizon Results platform. And yes, so I will take advantage of the fact that there are no questions yet to leave briefly the word to my colleague Michelle. Also, if you'd like to say something to the audience before we have questions, let's
yes,
take advantage.
Yeah, all right, just thank you again, Michele, for including us. And please don't hesitate, anyone, to reach out to us and surf on the platform if you haven't been there yet, and publish your results as soon as they're exploitable. You don't have to wait until the end of the project so that you can take advantage of all the various events and activities that we are involved with our partners on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very, very much. And I see that people are thanking us for the, especially, of course, thank you, not very much to me and you, Michelle, but I would say a big thank you to Christian for, of course, the knowledge that has been transferred today. Let's put it like that. And I see that you have been absolutely clear, Christian, because I see no questions coming up. One last info. We are about, of course, to close the transmission, and in case, for example, question would be popping out in your mind as soon as the webinar is going to be over, and of course we cannot reconnect, but still you can drop an email, or also through our website you can ask directly a question to the European IP Helpdesk's helpline, in case you, for example, you have missed some the chance to do it now. But yeah, so since there is no questions coming up, I would say that we can actually close up the connection. And again, thank you very, very much for your attention, and thank you, Christian, for your expertise, and thank you, Michelle, for the organization, of course. And see you at our next appointment. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.